Welcome to the Overdrive Outdoors podcast,
your source for everything outdoors.
Let's kick it into overdrive.
Overdrive Outdoors podcast brought to you by Predator Hunter Outdoors. Whether you are new to predator hunting or looking to upgrade your equipment, Predator Hunter Outdoors will have you hunting after the sun goes down. Carrying a full line of lights, night vision, and thermal optics, along with tripods, calls, mounting systems, and more, check them out at www.predatorhunteroutdoors.com or on Facebook at Predator Hunter Outdoors. Use promo code OVERDRIVE2021 for 20% off your order. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Kevin Rott. I got Josh Mapes here with me tonight, and we have a special guest for episode number 9, Mr. Buck Wells from Wyoming. How you doing tonight, Buck?
Dandy.
Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. I think I first met Buck basically online, part of what, Predator Central?
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah, Predator Central and Predator Hunters tips, tricks, and tactics pages on Facebook. And Buck was one of those guys that got on there, and I think he forgot more about coyotes than I ever knew. Probably still more than I know. And he used to do some live feeds on there, and I always really liked how he presented information, gave information, his knowledge in general, the depth of his knowledge and all that. So we talked quite a bit on there. And then, what was it, probably 4 years ago, I think it was, Joe Mintz and I, 3 years ago?
3, I think.
Yeah. Joe Mintz and I traveled out there, and we were able to do some hunting with Buck and one of his buddies out there. We went out there for mule deer and antelope. We also did a little predator hunting while we were out there. Excellent experience. It's beautiful country you live in out there. Technically, where you live is considered high desert, correct?
Correct.
And
it's we're in a unique position where the plains meet the Rocky Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And where me and you were at is a basin that's just desert. So
yeah, a lot of sagebrush country.
Yeah.
I think the only time we really seen anything that I would call a forest is when we went up to go for wolves.
The Kerwin.
And ran into all the elk hunters. But
That'll teach them.
It was beautiful country out there. We enjoyed the heck out of the trip. Buck was a great guy to be out there with. So tell us a little bit about your background, Buck. Have you always lived in Wyoming?
Well, I got out of the state for a little while going to school and stuff. But other than that, yeah, I was born and raised in Johnson County over the other side of the mountain there. So yeah, it's Wyoming's been home.
Okay. Now, what age would you say you actually started hunting? I mean, I imagine most of the folks out there in Wyoming, if they're going to hunt, they start at a pretty young age.
Well, when you say hunting, we hunt from the time we get our diaper on.
Okay.
It's just a matter of actually, for like big game and predators, I'd say most of us start around 12, 13.
Okay. So about the
somewhere
same as what it is in Michigan. I think the youngest you can be to hunt deer in Michigan, what is it, 11 now?
There is no age anymore.
Well, okay, yeah, you're right. When I was a kid, it used to be 11, I think.
It was 12 when I started, which was my first year being able to bow hunt was in 2000 when I was 12 years old.
Okay. And I think we could hunt small game before that, if I remember right.
That I don't know.
But for deer or anything bigger, you had to be, like I said, 12, 11.
Right. Well, I'm similar to Josh, and we had a bow, like 5, 6, without shooting rabbits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of
Can't even
rabbits out
talk.
there.
Oh yeah.
And they're huge. Compared to our rabbits, your rabbits out there are huge.
Well, there's jackalope and
Right. So what's the biggest one of those you've gotten?
I'd say 3 point.
Nice.
3 on each side.
Did you get it while it was still in velvet?
Well, I actually got him. He was hung up in the fence. He'd been chasing this horse around trying to breed.
So you took away his last joy, or did you let him finish?
No. I took away his last joy.
All right. So did you start predator hunting the same time you started like big game hunting? Would you?
No, I actually got started. My family had been predator hunting since about 1902 in that area between the hole in the wall country down around KC all the way up into Montana. And it kind of fell to me once we had weasels and coons breaking into the hen house. My job was to take care of them. Then I graduated up to fox, coyote, and on up the road. It was just something that all ranch kids did.
Sure, it was kind of a necessity.
Right. I was fortunate to have ancestors that had been in that business, and so I could learn from them.
So to really put it in terms, your family grew up in the fur trade. Is that accurate?
Ranching, fur trade.
Okay.
In the wintertime, that's how they made their money, was fur. And it was all done horseback. No electronic calls. You had your dog, you got him to howl, and that's what brought him in. Or you could, imitate calls, but they didn't have nothing to work with like we do today.
Were they trappers as well?
My dad did some trapping. My granddad didn't care for traps. You had to cover so much ground, and he considered more important things to do. So he left the trapping to my dad when he was a kid, and granddad would just ride and shoot.
Okay.
That was his thing.
All by horseback.
At that time, yeah.
That actually sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a hell of a lot of work, is what it is.
Yeah.
In your cold, miserable wind, you're just fighting the elements. So as soon as I could, I bought a Jeep, put that nag in the barn, and go to work.
Nice. So you actually started doing more like predator hunting and nuisance control before you started big game hunting?
Yes. On the ranch there, we weren't allowed to eat beef. That money went in the kitty. And so we were shooting our deer and stuff out of the haystacks. Well, that was kind of Dad's job.
Mm-hmm.
We just took care of the varmints. Us kids did. So
what did you grow up on a cattle farm, a cattle ranch? What did you grow up on that had such problems with predators?
Well, my granddad's place was out, and I know this is going to sound funny, on a cattle ranch that he owned out on Crazy Woman Creek, which was rightfully named if you'd ever met my grandmother. And my dad's place, we were up on Clear Creek. In total, ranches out here, like Granddad's place, was 1,500 acres. So you get stuff moving up and down the creek year round.
Yep.
Coyotes would move in and out. Bobcats would move in and out. Coons weren't really a big problem out there at his place, but on our place up Clear Creek, we had coons in our corn constantly. So, but we didn't farm per se, like you guys know farming.
Yep.
We ran cows and raised hay, and my mother had a garden that was probably an acre or two, and she'd get wound up tight if something got into her garden.
Oh yeah, well
that was sacred ground.
Right.
And that was our job, was to cover the livestock in the garden.
Gotcha.
So back then, which of the Ingalls daughters did you like the most?
Chris. We actually did have some Ingalls on up the creek from us.
Oh, really?
There was 3 girls, Jill, Chris, and I forget the youngest one's name.
Mm-hmm.
I liked them all at one time or another.
So now, kind of through from then to now, what species do you currently hunt out there of both big game and or predators?
Really, I kind of stick to just deer and coyotes.
And you out there, you have both whitetail and muleys, correct?
Whitetail and mule. Of course, then there's elk and bighorn sheep and all the biggies, the moose and whatnot. But I stick just to deer and coyotes.
I was told there's a bunch of reindeer out there, but they're usually around the Buck Wells Ranch.
Well, there was until some guy shot one.
Now, do you strictly rifle hunt for them, or do you do any bow hunting out there?
I haven't bow hunted in years, but there is a strong bow hunting community here.
I would imagine that's got to be quite the challenge out there, especially in the area where you're at. Now, if you get up in the mountains where you have more woods, I think it'd be a little bit better. But to me, that just seems like a daunting undertaking to be
especially if you're after antelope.
Yeah,
it's double tough.
Right.
But there's guys that are good at it, and they manage to get those speed goats with a bow every year.
It's got to be just all spot and stock.
That's the only way that you can do an antelope.
Okay. Don't a lot of them like to basically set up by a watering hole too?
Yeah, you can set up a blind by watering hole. Their favorite trick is take a handkerchief and tie it on a stick, get up on a knob, stick it in the ground, and that antelope will travel a mile to see what that flapping rag is.
Yeah, they're really curious.
Right. And they'll hole up in a sagebrush and just wait for him to walk in.
Wow.
I've never heard that before.
That takes patience, more patience than I got, to be honest. But
go ahead.
I was going to say that's just part of knowing the animal you're after.
Yeah.
Like Josh, and I'm sure you guys grunt those bucks in and rattle them in. Not here.
Yeah.
That's just there ain't enough woods. The sagebrush is our state tree, so they don't hardly get tall enough to put a tree stand in.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's what makes it, to me, just looks like so much of a challenge is there isn't any cover in a lot of those areas other than a sagebrush. Now, someone that's my height might not have as much trouble as someone like Josh's height, because I could almost stand up behind some of that sagebrush and they wouldn't even see me. So
antelope wondering why the rabbit's standing up.
Yeah, I'll just wait for him to come around the corner and take my shot.
There's a little jackalope over there. Look, he's trying to breed a horse.
And the same thing with deer, though, up where you're at too. It's the same. Well, obviously they're not. The flag trick probably doesn't work as well for the deer.
Well, yeah,
but it's a lot of spot and stalk for the deer.
Spot and stalk, or if you know where their route is traveling to and from,
just ambush
their bedding area. Just lay back in the sagebrush and wait them out.
So what was your technique when you were out there, Kevin?
Well, for the mule deer and the antelope both, we did a lot of scouting. Obviously Buck was our tour guide, so I mean we went around the ground that he knows to try and spot the animals, and then we'd figure out how we were going to set up on them. So like the first animals that we took were the mule deer, if I remember correctly. And the tags we had, when we bought the tags, Wyoming actually sent us a letter from the state with a list of landowners that want you to shoot the animals off their property. And it gave their name and address and phone numbers and all that. And I know our antelope tags were, but I don't recall if our mule deer tags were. They had to be shot within like a mile and a half of irrigated ground.
Right.
So we did daytime, and like just at dusk or morning, we'd go out and try and locate the animals, spot them. And then we set up an ambush point for them with the mule deer. We located a spot where the mule deer were crossing from private farm ground, crossing a road, going through some public ground, and then they'd go up on top of a mesa to bed for the day. So Joe and I had, or we had Buck drop Joe and I off on that public ground, and we got up on a hill and waited for him to cross over to that mesa, basically. If, I don't know if that's the right term or not, but it was a really damn high hill that was flat on top. And so they actually came through just a little bit before daylight. So they got past us before we had legal light, and they'd already started to go up that hillside. And they were probably half to 3/4 of the way up there by the time we had legal light and were able to make our shots on it. The antelope was the same thing. We went and looked at some of the properties that they had given us from the state and made a few phone calls. And the guy's like, yeah, come on out. We got 30 of them in the field right now. You brought 10 tags, right? And I'm like, no, we got 2 tags. I'm like, you got 10 tags, right? We got 2 tags. So we'd go out, and I mean, one of the spots we went to, there's already a guy out there skinning and gutting his antelope. And it's funny because he drove his truck right out in the middle of the field, and he's gutting this antelope with a one of those skinning poles that goes into your hitch.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there gutting that thing out, and there's a herd of antelope, probably, what'd you say, Buck, like 100, 200 yards away from him?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, standing there watching him while he's gutting this one out in the field. And we're like, well, we aren't going to hunt that one right now. So we ended up locating some that were on this farm that had some green ground on it, surrounded by a bunch of other stuff. And it was actually pretty funny because the first time we tried, we thought, yeah, we can sneak up there, get set up for a shot. We'll make our shot. We'll be good. Yeah, you don't sneak up on antelope very well on flat, open ground. And it was funny because we got set up out there. And of course, they take off. They headed off to the other end of this field, which out there, our field is probably about 1.5 miles long. So they all run over there. And for anyone that doesn't know, the antelope is the fastest land animal in North America. And once they get going, they don't stop. They have good lungs. They go for quite a ways.
Miles.
So we told Buck, said, okay, well, why don't you and Joe stay here? I'll get in Joe's truck and I'll drive to the other side of that property around the block and see if I can get him to run back here. That way Joe can get a shot at one. Yeah, that didn't work either. They ran further away. So then we decided, well, we know they come into that green stuff to graze. So the next morning we'll go out there before daylight. We'll set up. There's a grass line there. We'll set up in that on that fence line. We'll wait for them to come in and graze, and hopefully we can see the ones we want. Because our tags were for doe and fawn only.
Right.
And Joe really wanted to shoot what he called a freaky doe. The females occasionally will have antlers, horns, I guess is a correct term.
Occasionally.
Yep.
Not a lot, but
right.
Some of them get them.
And that's what Joe really wanted to shoot. I didn't care. I'm like, hey, we can shoot that fine. Otherwise, I really don't care. But so luckily we borrowed Buck's buddy's spotting scope, because at a distance, the only way to tell a doe from a buck, if it has horns, is a spot on the side of their face. Correct, Buck?
A black patch.
Yep.
It kind of looks like Josh's goatee, thing.
That's my
Right.
beard. Give it credit where credit is due. All right.
Come talk to me when you talk beard, son.
So we had to use that spotting scope and trying to identify does that had horns. And we did find there was at least 2 because we shot them both out of that group. Joe shot his first, and then I shot mine after that. The funny thing was they really didn't move a whole lot after we shot. They came back to graze, and I was able to pick one out. And
Well, they were bedded down when we first snuck in there by that pipe. They were bedded down,
right.
so they were still just kind of waking up. And
Yep. Chilling.
yeah,
And then so Buck and I spotted for Joe, and then Joe and Buck spotted for me when I shot mine. And it was just, I mean, my shot, if I remember right, was around 250 yards. I don't remember what Joe's was.
I don't remember.
So it was definitely a comfortable distance for us to shoot. Our shots on the mule deer were further than that. But yeah, it was basically spot and stalk was the strategy that we used. And we had a lot of scouting time in there too. We put a lot of miles on Joe's truck.
I showed him the countryside.
Yeah.
That's part of the
Really
experience.
cool. It was really cool too, because you showed us some old deserted towns, like some mining towns. We got to see some of the old settlement towns up on the mountains. I mean, really, we got to see a lot of country and a lot of cool stuff.
Buckwell's first house up there on the side of the mountain in that cave, everything like that.
Yeah, the paintings are still on the wall.
So Buck, he said, what your tag said that you had to shoot these animals within 1.5 miles of an irrigated field.
Yeah, they're the tags that they drew. In Wyoming, it's weird. You don't just go, if you're an out-of-stater, you can't just go down and buy a antelope tag
Over the counter.
over the counter. You have to put in for it and be drawn. And you have to pick 3 different areas. Your first, second, and third choices. It's just, you're lucky if you can get a buck on your first choice
Yep.
ground. And it's pretty rare to get that. They happen to draw does and fawns. I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but was your second choice
I think our
ground? Second or third.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it worked out.
So what does that mean though? It has to be, why does it have to be within 1.5 miles of irrigated fields? Because that's where landowners are having problems with them?
Yeah,
Okay.
the antelope and the deer are in on their alfalfa and winter wheat
Okay.
so heavy, they're destroying your crop.
So it's part of a DNR program out there?
Well, kind of.
Okay.
Well, see,
We
that,
don't have a DNR per
Okay.
se.
one of the things that, if I remember right, is when we did harvest those animals, we had a tag we were supposed to give to the landowner, correct?
Yeah,
And most of the landowners just say, well, just stick it by this fence or put it by this or whatever. And you leave that tag with them. Can't they turn that in for some sort of reimbursement?
yeah, you send it back into the state for, was it $5, I think? So every successful hunt on your ranch nets you $5, and that's supposed to kind of help pay for the damages that the animals do.
Okay. I mean, you'd have to offer quite a bit of hunting on there to make that pay for the damages.
Well, that's the incentive.
Okay.
Otherwise,
There isn't.
a rancher will lease his area to an out-of-state hunter and let nobody else on. Well, this way, he's incentivized to open it up to everybody.
So this is almost like the Michigan Hunter Access Program, which is private property that's open for public hunting. Only, I
Right.
mean, you can only have a certain amount of people on certain amount of ground. And then we around here, I don't even know if there's any available anymore in the state. I thought they shut that whole program down, but I'm hearing people are still finding them. But yeah, a lot of them you have to sign in at a box before you go, say what you were hunting, and then a lot of them have like a comments for how your experience was.
Do you guys have just a walk-in area? It's private ground, but the owners have designated as just walk-in.
That would be basically what this is.
Same thing.
There's no private land that's open for public that's not part of this program that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But we
Another-
have hundreds of thousands of acres of public ground.
Right.
Another thing I'll add too is when we got those tags, and I think if I remember right, Colorado is real similar. There's different zones through the whole state, and there's different zones for each animal through the whole state, and different zones have different dates and different animals you're allowed to take and everything else. Because there's like a general antelope tag, there's like a general deer tag, and then you have, I think the tags that we got calling for shooting within the distance of the irrigated ground were called like limited tags or special
Limited.
tags.
Yeah. There are limited, not edition, but limited, the name escapes me now, but that's what they are. And you guys are stuck with using rifle. You can't shoot them with a bow.
Oh, really?
Because a bow license is different.
Okay.
Yeah, and they got all kinds of stupid shit.
Right.
It is.
Right. And I mean, we've seen a ton of different wildlife out there. We've seen buffalo, we've seen elk, we've seen mule deer, we've seen whitetail,
Turkeys.
turkeys, which I didn't even know you guys had turkeys out there.
Oh, yeah.
We seen turkeys. We seen the swift fox. We
Yep,
didn't.
swift fox, grouse.
Yep, grouse. We didn't see any wolves or bears. We did see some. I think we seen some sheep too, if I remember right. Didn't we?
I don't recall any sheep.
Maybe I was
But-
thinking when I was out in Colorado, but I mean, tons of animals out there, and
Yeah.
even some of the birds you see are different out there. Like around here, we don't have those magpies, and out there,
Oh,
you
really?
guys have them all over the place, right?
Yeah, they're common here.
Yeah, we don't have them out here. So yeah, that was pretty interesting to see the different wildlife that was out there. So now, if we go into predator hunting, what all species have you predator hunted out there?
Oh,
All of them?
pretty much everything except skunks. I haven't went after skunk. Wyoming only really designates the jackrabbits, the big rabbits that you like,
Mm-hmm.
and coyotes as just pure predators,
Okay.
with the exception of the wolf. Once he gets beyond the big game area,
A
then he's just no
jackrabbit?
big. Think of him as a overgrown cottontail.
Well, I know what a jackrabbit is, but they consider they consider that a predator?
Yeah, he's a predator.
Really?
Yeah, that had us shaking
Absolutely.
our heads when he told us when we were out there too. We're like, really? That's same
Yeah.
classification?
For what?
Ankles.
Well,
Ankle? What in the world is going on? So Wyoming considers a jackrabbit to be a predator.
yep.
Are they a predator species?
It's not a predator species per se. They're classed as a predator because there's so many.
So almost just like a
Nuisance.
Yeah,
nuisance.
pretty much just a nuisance kill.
Okay, I got you.
Same
I was
way
gonna
with
say,
that.
I never heard jackrabbits going and mauling a baby fawn or anything like that the back of
Well, during the
mule
rutting
deer.
season. But yeah, that's what that's all about. And now your fox, we got 3 kinds of fox, of course, and they're all classed fur bearer. And then your bobcat, he's a special fur bearer. You guys get a special license for him. But bear, he's considered big game
Now,
predator.
are they still protected out there, Buck, or did they lift that?
No, they're still protected.
I know there's already been some maulings this year too, hasn't
Oh
there?
yeah, oh yeah.
That's
It's
crazy.
the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But we don't have the big money to fight the environmentalists. So
Right. And then
now wolves, we did get that through so that we can kill them like a coyote once they leave the big boundary, the
right.
big game boundary. And that's just around Yellowstone Park. So if I catch one out here on the flat where the Coyote Canyon was that I took you and Joe to,
Yeah.
one rolls in there, he's dead. I got it.
That was probably one of, in Michigan, when you're out there and you let out a howl and you get a bunch of coyotes howling around you, you can't see them because of the trees and the grass and everything else. This spot Buck was talking about that he took us out to, we went out there and we howled, and it was probably more coyotes than I think I've ever heard. They were all different directions, and even we never seen a single one. It's all rocks and canyons and they're all over the place, but you can't see them. Not only that, but the coloring, they blend in so well. I mean, I swear to God, there was one right below me down in this washout, and I'm looking down there and I can't see anything, but I can hear those suckers howling. That was pretty impressive. I mean, I know we coyote hunted a few spots in Wyoming there, and I know they called in one. I was on the backside of the hill. Joe and refresh me on his name. Your buddy.
Oh,
Now I don't feel
Yeah.
so bad.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, Joe and him were on the other side, and they said they seen one out that was probably like 1,000 yards out, and it didn't have a care in the world. But we actually didn't see any coyotes while we were hunting in Wyoming. Now, one of the things that was interesting about Wyoming is you can only hunt in the daytime, except for if you have written permission by a landowner on private land at night. And I think the limitation was lights only. Is that right?
No, you can use thermal too.
Okay.
Now, that's another one of these laws that I hate. If you're on public ground, it's daylight only.
Right. So,
And if you're on private ground, you can pretty much get away with murder.
okay.
Anything you want. You go to Montana, it's
Right.
wide open.
Yep.
You can do whatever you want anytime.
That's what I was going to bring up next is we were only about 20 minutes from Montana. So one night we all went up into Montana on some of the ground Buck's friend had, and we gave them a little bit of a experience on nighttime hunting with night vision and thermal up in Montana. And we were successful up there. That's some beautiful country as well, too. I mean, all of that's just beautiful. But it's amazing coming from Michigan, where I would assume someone like yourself came to Michigan, you'd probably almost feel claustrophobic because there's spots around here where you can't see 10 yards because of the woods and everything. Whereas you're out there, I mean, you can see for miles. That's not an exaggeration.
Well, and that's one of the things I watch you guys do your night hunts on the overdrive pages, and all that's new to me. It's just a whole different world. I can't even imagine starting out as a coyote hunter today, going through and doing what you guys do at night. To me, that is it's just space age stuff.
Elaborate on that. Just the gear that we're using, or what we're dealing with as far as what we have here to coyote hunt? What do you mean?
Well, not just the gear, but that's a part of it.
Yep.
You guys are standing up with a tripod and a rifle, making more noise than God knows what to do with, and you're calling coyotes. They're running right to you. If I went out in the hills out here and tried that during the day, the coyotes would be laughing me out of the field. I mean, I wouldn't see nothing but dust. And that would be the coyotes leaving.
Why do you think that is? Oh, because of being daylight and being outside open.
The fact that you guys could do that
okay
is just like a foreign concept to me. It's like, if I thought I could stand up all night and shoot coyotes, I'd do it. But
sounds like you can if you go over to Montana.
Well, yeah, they do it up in Montana.
And you can just fly over in your sleigh and just shoot them like that, like they do in Texas with the helicopters.
I don't know if I could get ground clearance for that.
There's got to be enough Christmas spirit. You'll get it.
Ma, bring me the shotgun.
So now when you go out calling, Buck, how long would you say you set on average on a set?
Out here, average is half hour, 45 minutes.
Okay. So not too much different than us.
I have sat around and killed them in an hour. But usually I know they're there and I know they're coming.
I think you know most of their names too, don't you?
The new crop, I didn't check in on this new crop. I have to get out there and meet them.
Now, obviously, I'm assuming coyotes are probably the most prevalent predator you have out there, right?
Yes.
What's the population like for like bobcats, wolves, cougar?
Bobcats are funny out here. You'll find pockets of them. There'll be like 6 or 7 living in a long draw, and then you'll travel 15 miles and there'll be nothing. And then you'll find another batch of them. And why that is, I don't know, but that's just kind of the way they are. Badgers, you'll find one, I don't know, probably depending on what part of Wyoming you're in, every 15 mile, 10, 15 miles. They kind of like to hang around irrigated stuff when they can. So if you work ranches, you'll find them more often. Weasels, you never know where you're going to find them things. They're everywhere or they're nowhere. You know, they're tough. Coons naturally stick around the water down or out here.
Mhm.
The wolves now, they're a pack animal and that lives in a kind of like a coyote in a designated area. Even more so than a coyote. So if you know a game warden or two by name, he'll kind of hint to you where he last seen them, where he last heard them,
Mhm.
and you can kind of get in on them that way. But they're not scattered everywhere.
Mhm.
That's the big myth. I kind of had to chuckle when you were talking to that kid last week
Yep.
About the impression that the West is just full of coyotes. It ain't that way. We have coyotes. They're kind of scattered because it takes such a large area to keep one fed. They have to cover a ton of ground. So there isn't a coyote under every brush. Because if there was, they'd all be starved to death. There just ain't enough food out here.
Do you guys, do you lose a lot of the population, you think, due to them starving and diseases, parvo, stuff like that out there?
We do lose quite a few to parvo.
Yeah.
In Wyoming, here in my area, we lose far more to the state flying around shooting them
Okay.
than we do disease. And, you know, we don't have the population you guys got for hunters to be out hunting them. So they're kind of a big problem for the state of Wyoming because once they get on a sheep herd or the calves, they can really screw stuff up. So
Sounds like Wyoming would be a fun place to go move to.
Now, speaking of disease, do you encounter many with mange?
I'd say not half, probably a quarter
Okay.
of the coyotes got mange. And it changes from year to year, but mange is pretty prevalent. But I think that's kind of common everywhere,
Mhm.
you know. And same way with mites, you know, and worms. They get worms.
Yep.
You know, you see one that's hairless and about that big around, about the size of a quarter. You know, he's got worms and mange.
Mhm.
He's done.
Seeing here, I've seen mange here, but I've never seen it like I did the one that we shot in New Mexico in 2019. That was completely hairless. I've never seen that here. I see like patches of mange or spots on their legs that are gone or part of their tail, but I've never seen one completely hairless here.
You know why that is?
No.
In New Mexico, it doesn't get cold enough for them to freeze to death.
Oh, okay.
And during the summer here, it's the same way. They'll lose every stitch of hair they got. And until that hard winter hits,
And then they die of
they'll
exposure,
survive.
basically.
Right. But once winter sets in hard, they'll freeze to death and they're done.
See, it's funny because even today, I know Kevin was watching our video from New Mexico. We're getting comments every day from anti-hunters saying how bad we are and how we're murderers. And it's like, would you guys really rather these animals die suffering? I mean, they don't when we shoot them.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of funny that just to think that people are so blinded to you're bad for doing it this way, but it's actually the more humane, nicer way to die probably than dying from starvation and disease.
Well, you're exactly right. You're doing actually that critter a favor.
Yep.
You know, I mean, he's in misery,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
So what's
and go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that's another side of that is I've always promoted that the coyote, he's an asset for us.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many pairs of boots and pants I've bought as a kid just off coyote fur. That's how we made our winter money, for school, you need new boots,
Right.
you go get your coyote.
Yeah.
And you're helping the wildlife in the area. When you keep those numbers knocked down to where they're a manageable number,
Yeah.
you're actually helping the rest of the wildlife.
Right.
Well, we
Because
had
coyote eats anything.
we had one
Nothing
guy
safe.
today say that, this is why coyotes are extinct. Like, number one, they're not extinct. And number two, I don't ever want to kill them all.
No.
I don't.
No.
I love hunting them too much. I don't want to kill them all. That's why certain areas we let off for a while, because you've already killed a whole bunch of them and the landowners are no longer having problems with them. I
Right.
might see one every once in a while, but unless they call me specifically, I'm not going to rush out there trying to kill every single one of them there. That's not my goal.
That's not the mission.
Right.
So what's the fox population like out there?
Well, you tell me, you seen to them.
Those are the only two we've seen. So we've seen more fox than we did coyotes.
Yeah. The fox numbers are actually pretty good. And like I say, we've got 3 kinds. So, I mean, different areas hold different foxes, but
Was
we
that,
got plenty of reds.
is
So,
it swifts, reds, and grays? Are those the 3 species you have?
yeah.
Now, what about the big cats?
Now those pretty much, I won't say they stick to the mountains,
Mhm.
because Cody the town just up the road had one come through town, what was it, a month or 2 ago? Walking the creek bottom.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, there's plenty of big cats around, although they're having a tough time because the wolves are pretty much driving them out.
Okay.
It's getting now to where the wolves have pretty much ate up everything that was easy food. So the cats are struggling.
That's, you'd think the cougar would be an alpha predator per se, but wolves have the numbers on them.
Right. And that's where they've got the advantage, even over a grizzly.
Mm-hmm.
That grizzly outweighs that wolf by 6 times.
Yeah.
But the numbers, he just can't. Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, just in case I ever do come to Wyoming, what is the favored bar of the cougars in the local area?
I would say Cassie's.
Okay. I'll take this. I'm taking notes. Thank you.
Okay. Put under your notes there, Cassie's Old Whorehouse.
I'm gonna leave that one off in case my wife comes down and sees my notes.
You just
put
have her
Cassie.
Zoom me. I'll fill her all in.
Sounds good.
Have you ever called in a cougar out there?
Yes. He was still a long ways away, but I called him in, sure enough. They move funny. You can tell a mountain lion by the way he moves. And I seen that little speck coming, and he was coming off the edge of the draw, and he wasn't no coyote. I could sure tell by the way he was walking. He wasn't no coyote. And got a scope up, got a lock on him, and yeah, gorgeous animal. I'd love to pull the trigger, but no tag. So
Are the tags pretty expensive out there for them?
I never have priced a cat tag, so
Okay.
it's one of those. It's like, God, I wish I had, but
Mm-hmm. Now, how many times when you've been coyote hunting have you called in wolves?
within shooting range.
Sure. None?
I've called them, I think, twice, but they scented me before I got onto them. So tracks coming in and tracks leaving, but I never laid an eye on them.
Mhm. So when we were out there, you're using an Icotech, what, GC 350 or 600?
Well, now I had two of them with me.
Okay.
One was the GC 300,
Mhm.
like that young fella from last week. And then I think I don't remember if I took the Outlaw or the 500.
Okay.
I think we took 500.
And those are the same collars you're still using?
Oh, yeah.
And what do you have
Uh,
for hand calls? I know when we were there, you showed us a couple of unique ones. Like one of them was what, Elk Rapids?
Elk Inc.
Elk Inc. That's what it
It's
was.
the best kept secret for hand calls in North America. Nobody ever knows about them, but boy, they sure work.
Not anymore.
Well, I sent one to Tony and he couldn't play
Well, Tony's a little special.
it.
But you have other hand calls that you like too, right?
Yeah, I've got a Goose Creek. And of course, the one that's ribbed for her pleasure. You seen that one? That one's also an Elk Inc.
Okay.
call. And I think the other one I've got is the one I had back from when I was just a kid. What it was part of a boot heel that we'd carved and put a reed in. And yeah, it works. If you're going to imitate like pup distress, that's my favorite one for pup distress. Tastes like shit, but boy, it works.
He's like old boot leather.
Yeah.
Now, right now, we're just coming to the end, obviously, of our summertime hunting out here. Do you guys have a season on them out there?
Coyotes?
Yeah.
Or yeah. No, they're a year-round shoot at first opportunity animal.
But you don't do a lot of summertime hunting, do you?
Normally I do. I didn't this summer. I've got other projects going and grandkids coming and going.
Okay.
But normally, yeah, I do hunt summers
Okay.
and winter both.
Gotcha. Are fur prices staying pretty decent out there?
Well, they were kind of down last year. I think our best when George Whittemire come out, I think top dollar on that coyote we got one for 35 and a couple other for 25. But we've got the advantage here of the bounty on them.
Mm-hmm.
$20, $25 bounty.
So can you get paid for the fur and the bounty?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so that makes it a little bit better.
Yeah. So a coyote, if you can get $50 out of a coyote as long as you don't blow him in half.
Now, is that one of those deals where you have to cut off an ear or anything? Because there was a deal, like 2 years ago, I think it was, or maybe it was just before we came out there, where some people got busted for going somewhere else and shooting them and then turning them into a bounty at a different location, which was illegal. I don't know if it was out of state or out of an area, but they got in trouble for doing that. So what proof do you have to get that bounty? If you can save the fur?
Well, what they want you to do is you just throw the coyote in the back of your pickup. You take it up there and they'll clip the dew claw off of the coyote. Then you run him over to the fur buyer.
Oh, okay.
And just sell the carcass.
Okay.
I'm too lazy to skin them now.
Right.
That was fine when I was a kid, but there's no extra money in it for me. So
right.
I just sell them the carcass.
There you go.
And it keeps me from stinking.
That's a big one, especially in the summertime.
Oh yeah.
Now you've had, the Western states seem to draw a lot of other hunters out there. For big game and for predators. I know John Collins has spent some time out there.
Yeah.
Now, have you hunted with John?
Every time me and John try to get together, something happens. I don't know if it's God's just looking out for me or if he's looking out for John, but
I remember
we threatened to get together.
I remember when we were out there, you told us that Wyoming has actually humbled a couple of big name predator hunters out there. And like I said, our experience was very similar.
You know, a lot of the big name companies, guys come out and either get skunked or they'll hunt 3 or 4 days and see or kill one.
Mhm.
It's happened numerous times, and it's not because they're not good hunters. They know what they're doing. They've killed coyotes before.
Mhm.
It's that they don't understand the lay of the land or how to work the land to your advantage.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where I came up with that saying, hunt smarter, not harder.
And that helped us out a lot. And it wasn't even related to predators.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an interesting story with that mule deer. Like I was saying earlier, the mule deer were half to 3/4 of the way up this, and after we got them both down, Buck came back. Joe and I are looking at him like, now how do we get them down? Joe's like, oh, we'll just climb up that, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like a good idea at all.
Yeah.
And I asked Buck, and I said, hey, can we get to the top of that and maybe go down and bring him up? He's like, yeah, we can do that. So we drove around, got up to the top, got over the edge, looked down, and like, oh boy. So Joe and I walked down, got to his first, if I remember right. He
Yeah.
one side of the antlers, I grabbed the other. We took about 2 steps and said, holy cow, this isn't going to work. And that's when Buck came up with an idea like, hey, let's do it smarter, not harder. And we ended up taking a rope, tying it to Joe's truck, throwing it over the side, go down there, tying it off, and the truck to pull them up. And that was definitely a back saver.
I think I sent that rope home with you guys too.
Yeah, probably.
It was in the back of Joe's pickup when you guys left.
One piece of advice I will definitely add to, if you're hunting out there, watch where you sit. There's cactuses out there that you don't see that easy until you sit on them, and then you stand up and you got a bunch of thorns in your butt.
Josh, if you come out, wear underwear. Everybody from your state that's come out and hunted with me has shown me their underwear.
Is it
Because
hot
they got
out
no.
there? 'Cause I've got that onesie too.
Oh no, you leave that at home. Everybody that's been out here sits in a cactus. I don't know what it is, why.
We're not
but
used to it.
They get it in their legs and their fanny. And
Maybe you
no,
just
I'm flopping around.
maybe you just need to consider who you're taking hunting and
Well, that could
why
be.
they're sitting on cactuses.
I did it twice. The first time
Yeah.
was when I actually took the shot at the mule deer, because it was uphill and we were on this hill, and I rolled over to get on my belly to shoot prone at this mule deer, and I rolled right onto the cactus. Still made my shot, but hey. But then the second time was when we were recovering that mule deer, and I sat down, I think, to take a break, and I sat right in some cactus again. And yeah, my buddies there were nice enough to take a picture of me pulling thorns out of my butt.
Part of it is some of these guys just want to feel a little prick, Buck.
I'm not touching that one.
So what are your plans for this year? You're planning on getting back out there and after them?
Yeah, as soon as I'm working on a new coyote rig.
A vehicle?
Yeah, that Green International that I tried to sell Josh when he broke his pickup.
Okay.
Got it all done.
Which
except
time?
for I got a few minor details like putting a heater in it. But that old 65 International ought to climb any hill around. Just put it in 4 low and just let it go. So should be a good coyote pickup. Get it rigged up so I can take it out in the hills. Then
Now-
I'll hit them hot and heavy this winter.
Now here's a question for you. In the wintertime, do you put chains on your trucks?
Not until I'm stuck.
Okay.
Chains are to get you home, not get you into trouble.
Okay. I know
But-
when we were out there, we didn't really run into any snow because we were in there, it was around September, if I remember right. So there really wasn't any snow at that point until we got up in the mountains. We ran into a little bit.
Yeah. It was unseasonably warm.
Mm-hmm.
It just like this year, it's been ungodly warm.
Now, are you getting a lot of smoke from the fires out there?
Yeah. In fact, it was so bad today. I bet we couldn't see more than a mile.
Oh, wow.
It's that bad. So
That's pretty wild. Your favorite rifle out there? I remember you carrying it around. That was a 22-250 or 223?
Savage 22-250. It was the Predator Max 1.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they make that particular model anymore, but that is my go-to. But my favorite rifle is my Remington 788.
Okay.
It's got the lugs on the back of the bolt
Mm-hmm.
instead of the head. And that thing has took home more fox and coyotes than any gun I own.
Is that one a 250 as well?
No, it's a 223 actually.
Okay.
Came out in 71, I believe.
That's the year I was born.
Pup.
Good luck. Good luck year. Where so like I said, you used to do a lot of live feeds on some of the other pages. I mean, did you do any, like, is there any books you would recommend for trying to learn more about coyote behavior and life cycle and all that? I mean, I'm assuming a lot of it you learned from living there with them and observing them, but is there any particular reading that you would recommend for other people that aren't able to get that experience?
Books I can't really say to. If you guys really want to learn the ins and outs of coyotes, the University of Nebraska has a plethora of studies that they've done over the years. So is Texas, the University of Texas. Wyoming's famous for their Yellowstone coyote studies.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all, you can look them up on the web.
Okay.
And that'll go more into what makes coyotes tick than any book. Right. I was, like I say, was fortunate to have ancestors that had been doing it for almost 100 years. So I took what they taught me and went with that knowledge. Some of it has kind of fallen by the wayside over the years because the times have changed and so has the equipment. But most of it still applies. Like you remember, you questioned me when we were on stand why I was laying in the sagebrush.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else sets up so they can see. Well, you can see just as much if you get leaned down into that sage and your head's not sticking up above it. Plus, you blend into the countryside better.
Mm-hmm. I think that's something you see Les Johnson do a lot.
Les is good for that. Yeah, he does that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a trick I've seen. I would say a lot of my elders used. You don't see it much anymore, but everybody wants to sit in their chair and hunt. But get down on the ground and lay into that sagebrush or juniper or whatever and blend with the countryside.
Do you think the coyotes have changed over the years?
No, I really don't. They're just as dumb today as they were 60 years ago. Not that a coyote's ever dumb,
right?
But they still operate on the same 4 things or 3 things. Their eyes, ears, and nose. That's for a coyote. That's all he needs for life. It's like my poncho. Instead of gearing up in all this fancy camo, you get a poncho that's camo. You lay that sumbitch out around you, and it wrinkles and looks like brush, and it's better than a ghillie suit.
Yep.
And to boot, it's cheap.
Yep.
And I'm all about the cheap.
Right. And that's one thing that more and more, at least here, as you see the technology advance and the prices come down on the technology. So you're getting a lot more people getting into it and they want to buy the fanciest, best stuff out there. Well, not everyone can afford that, or not everyone wants to invest that much into a hobby of shooting a quote unquote worthless animal. And that's one thing that I try and stress to people is you don't have to spend a bunch of money to get into the sport and be successful. You can do it with a simple hand call, a simple rifle that's reliable, and that's about it. That's all you really need.
Right. Well, and some knowledge, a little knowledge.
Right. But that's priceless.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. If you understand scouting and you've got a rifle you can hit something with, you can call a coyote with a squeaky barbed wire fence. You don't have to spend a ton of money to enjoy it,
Right.
to enjoy the sport.
Yep.
And it is a sport now. It used to be, I didn't view it that way, but now in my elder years, I view it more as a sport. It gets me out of the house and out away from my chores.
Yep.
So I can't really stress that enough. You know, the new guys coming in, it's great to spend that money and have that shiny equipment, but you don't need it.
Right.
You really don't.
Yep.
I think one thing that kind of is justifiable for at least me is like it's one of really 3 hobbies that I have anymore. You know, with having
Right.
kids and a family, all I do when I can is hunt or go fishing, or whatever I'm doing is in regards to hunting or fishing or overdrive, you know, besides
Right.
the family stuff. And there's a lot of people who, you know, I used to love to golf. Well, I don't have time or money to go out golfing all the time. So
Right.
I don't golf hardly anymore. So there's a savings. And for me, it's justifiable because I only have 3 things I love to do, and that's hunt and fish, or hunt coyotes, hunt deer, or fish for food, you know. And a lot of guys have 15 hobbies and they want to add this one, but it's, well, how can I buy this $4,000 scope and a $3,000 scanner? You don't
Right.
have to.
No, I mean, daylight hunting's really cheap.
Yep.
It really is. And what you do, those hobbies, you can take the kids with you
Yep.
and they can enjoy it also.
Yep.
It's kind of tough to take a kid golfing. They
Yeah.
stand around and they watch the old man swing a club and
Learn
cuss
bad
because-
words.
yeah, and drink beer, you know. But you know, and that's the thing with a golf range. It's a perfectly good waste of a rifle range.
Hmm. Golf balls make good challenging targets, though. I will
They
say.
do, they do.
And they bounce really well when you do shoot them.
I'm curious, Buck, with as long as you've been doing this, you said you've been hunting coyotes since 1902 earlier. So you're 100, you've been doing this for a long, long time.
It's been a day or two, yeah.
How do you view the predator hunting world now compared to when you did it before? You know, obviously there wasn't social media and everything, but now you're
Yeah.
on social media. How do you view predator hunting anymore besides the sport part? I mean, what's your outlook on it?
Well, it's changed a lot over the years. Like I say, when I was young and I was doing it for us and our fellow ranchers in the area, it was a job.
Yep.
I mean, it's something we did to make money. It was a job. And then later on, got out of school and actually had a real job. Then it was something just to enjoy. So it was kind of like it turned into a hobby.
So
I
did
like
you
what
not
you're-
did you not enjoy it when it was a job?
No, because I was sitting on the back of an old gray mare, 30 below, with my feet freezing, my mittens frozen to my rifle.
Yep.
There
It's
was
different.
times I did enjoy it, yes,
Yeah.
but there were times I damn sure didn't. Is that the wife?
No, that's my dog barking. I tried to mute it real quick there. I was gonna say it's a lot different when it's something you have to do versus something you
Right. And now to me, it's just for giggles, you know.
Yeah.
I don't even call it a hobby now. It's just something to get out away from the house and do, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I can imagine, you know, when you're younger like that and your dad's like, get out there and take care of them. And you're like, oh, where do I go? It's like, no, get out there. So you bundle up and out
That
there
was it, yeah.
freezing your butt off. I can see why it wouldn't be enjoyable.
Yeah, it was There was times I thought about leaving home. It was just that bad. But
Yeah.
Most of the time, though, it was in the spring when they were lambing and calving. They were having a few that were coming in, creating problems. That was after the good fur season, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So, you could sit in the sun and stay warm and do your killing. So that wasn't so bad. But in January, and it's breeding season, and you're trying to knock that female bitch down before she lays pregnant, that's when it gets to be a job. But I don't have to do that now. So
Right. Yeah. Well, I think we're almost out of time on this recording. You have any other questions, Josh?
No, not really any more questions. Buck, sorry about my dog in the back.
oh, you're fine. That's fine.
I've just always appreciated anybody who is willing to share information like you always have been. Anytime, like Kevin said, you used to do live feeds just talking about coyotes. You weren't out hunting, you weren't out dragging a coyote across the field. You were just telling people about coyotes. And I mean, I appreciate that. So thank you for being there for us guys that are still, I'm still learning.
Oh, so am I.
Nice to have guys, that have been out here since 1902 that you can just go ask these questions to. And, there's some people who are shut mouth, tight lip, won't tell you anything, but the ones like you, we definitely appreciate because you help us come up at the same time.
Well, I try to help where I can. My advice to anybody out there is learn your coyotes, learn the different times of the season, what's going on in that coyote's life. Things change throughout the coyote hunting year for that coyote. His diet changes, his range changes, his motivation changes. It's not all about food. Sometimes he's looking for love. Become familiar with that coyote, and then you won't have to listen to old farts like me. You'll already know.
But that's the other thing that I enjoy about someone such as yourself too, is just that level of camaraderie. Someone you can sit around and shoot the breeze with and share stories with. And, I appreciate learning from you. And it was a great time out there hunting with you. I mean, that too is a big part of it too. I mean, I shouldn't say everyone, a lot of people like myself, I enjoy going out coyote hunting by myself a lot, but at the same time, I like to share it with friends and stuff like that too. And, I haven't run into too many people that, won't do it. I know there's some people out there that really don't like to, but I appreciate people that are willing to share that experience either directly or through storytelling or giving advice or whatever. I mean, that means a lot to me.
Well, I've learned from you guys too now. So
What
it's
not to do?
well, some of that, yeah. Babes. No.
Don't call me out.
No, like I say, this night hunting stuff is all new to me, and watching the calls that you guys use, when you use them, the techniques that you guys are using. This is all new to me. So I'm always learning, just like Josh said. The learning curve never ends, and nothing is ever written in stone.
Yep.
When it comes to coyote hunting.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what we tried to talk about with Henry last week a little bit too, was every single coyote, you might have 5 of them sitting out there not caring, but the one that's sitting there going, oh, that sounds yummy to me.
Ooh, bulls. I like bulls.
Different. Yeah, exactly. They're all different.
Right.
Yeah. Same thing. Just the other night, I had 3 young ones in a field. 2 out of 3 completely ignored me. One decided he was going to come check it out. And according to my wind, he shouldn't have been downwind, but he got to within about 60 yards of me, but he was on a different piece of property I couldn't shoot on. And I was hoping he was going to come that little bit, another 20, 30 yards. I could have shot him, but nope, he hung up, turned around, went back. And then they went back to completely ignoring everything I did.
Oh, sure.
So it's like you said, every time is a little bit different. And, the best thing I can tell somebody is try and learn from every stand, whether you're successful or not successful, try and learn from it.
You learn more from your unsuccessful stands
Right.
than you do from the ones you did kill on.
Right.
At least that's been my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Other than that, guys, the only thing I can tell you is, just hang in there. I'm more than happy to answer questions for somebody. Always will be. I know you guys are too.
Yep.
That's kind of what I think the overdrive thing's about.
Absolutely. Is it okay for people to contact you and ask you questions?
Oh, sure. They do all the time.
How would you prefer someone to contact you if they were listening to this podcast?
They just get on Facebook, look me up and message me.
I send a letter through snail mail to the North Pole usually. For anybody that doesn't know who Buck Wells is or why I keep bringing this up, sitting in front of us on this meeting right now, he's looking like Santa Claus. I mean, he's even got the hat sitting next to him. He's got
actually.
Red shirt. It looks like black suspenders.
Yeah.
And the big old white beard. I mean, I will take a 1.5 or 1,500 acre ranch if I've been good this year in Wyoming. Just write that down. It might have
I'll talk to Mrs. Claus about that one.
Thank you. I appreciate the good word.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you coming and joining us, Buck. Always a pleasure.
It's good to see you again, Kevin.
And
Good pick on you again, Josh.
Hopefully we'll be able to make another trip out there soon.
You guys are welcome anytime.
And same here. If you ever want to make a trip over here to claustrophobic Michigan, you're more than welcome.
Besides more than your typical once a year on Christmas Eve.
Well, yeah. It's you don't leave enough cookies out.
Well, at least you know what to expect for the snow since you've been over here once a year during December. Yeah,
well, I probably won't come out until you guys legalize wolves.
Oh, that's a sore subject right now, but
yeah, I know.
We're working on it. They had a meeting today, as a matter of fact, with the Wolf Advisory Council, and I didn't get a chance to listen to it yet, but I plan on listening to it to see what was on there. I caught just a little bit of it, and one of the guys that was up there speaking was like, we've already put laws in place to have the hunt. Your data is wrong. There's more wolves than you think there are. They're a problem. You need to let us manage them. And I didn't hear any more past that, but that seems to be the consensus in the Upper Peninsula where the wolf problem is. It's just getting our DNR to get off their butts and actually do what they should be doing, like Wisconsin is.
The problem sounds to be more like there's more wolves than they care to admit there are.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Their data isn't accurate in terms of the population, and the people up there will tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
The big problem is you have too many darn people down in the Lower Peninsula that thinks wolves are cute and cuddly and we're invading on their territory and you should let them be. That's the biggest problem, if you ask me.
Because we got the same problem with
even
grizzlies.
When they had the vote for making it so the DNR could legally set a season, the entire Lower Peninsula was opposed to it. The entire Upper Peninsula supported it. But because of politics and the demographics and all that, the votes down here superseded the votes up there, so they banned it. Well, then they ended up passing another law that didn't go by public opinion. That law got passed allowing them to set the season. Then they got put under federal protection. Now the federal protections are listed. Now the DNR is like, we need to do a public opinion poll and we need to consult with the tribals to make sure that they approve of it and blah, blah, blah. So it's a struggle on several levels right now to try and get that hunt going again.
See, our wolves, we had them completely delisted once, and then a federal judge stepped in. The same way with our grizzly. Put them back on the list.
And if it's like it was out here, it was a federal judge from a completely different state.
Yeah.
I think the judge that did it for Michigan was a judge from Georgia.
Well, ours was from Montana, but he freely admits he's never seen a wolf in his life or a grizzly.
That's sad too, because I know especially the grizzlies are getting to be quite an issue out there.
Yeah, we just transplanted another one 2 days ago.
Back in town again?
Well, remember Matitsi,
Mm-hmm.
the town of Matitsi? It was
Yep.
right downtown Matitsi.
Oh, wow.
So they had to gather him up and get him out.
Well, and if it's like that other one that you told us about when you're out there, he'll probably be back in about a month and a half.
Yep. They do like their home ground.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. Well, once again, thank you. Appreciate it. And,
Guys, it's been fun.
Yeah.
we hope to talk to you again soon. If anyone wants to look him up on Facebook. His name is Buck Wells. And, feel free to ask him any questions. He's a wealth of knowledge and a heck of a guy to talk to.
Yeah. And if you like this podcast, please don't hesitate to subscribe to the podcast for us and check them out on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube. It'll be up there too. But we appreciate everybody. Buck, we appreciate your time, and we appreciate everybody that takes time to listen to these too.
Well, thanks for the invite, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
sir.
you.
Want to lengthen your time in the field and shorten your scouting time? Not only does the HuntWise app show you property boundaries, landowners' names, and in some cases even their phone number, but using the app will show you the wind direction on the map of the place you want to hunt. And the HuntCast feature shows peak movement times for various species, including predators. Get the HuntWise app at www.huntwise.com, the Google Play Store, or the Apple App Store for only $59.99 a year for Pro or $119.99 a year for Elite. Use promo code OVERDRIVE20 for 20% off an annual membership.